Next up, let's talk about something called smart narratives, which create customizable AI-generated text summaries, either based on entire report pages or individual visuals. So here's an example of a smart narrative added to our product detail page. And what's important to keep in mind is that smart narratives react to report filters just like any other visual. So the text shown in that summary would dynamically change based on the filter context. You can also update your smart narratives. You can edit the text, you can reformat the text, or you can insert dynamic values like the one shown here. In this case, I've added a dynamic value defined as current product, which essentially populates whatever product is currently filtered for that page. So let's jump back into Power BI and explore a few different ways to create these types of narratives. All right, so for this demo, we're going to jump into the product detail page. And remember, there are a couple types of smart narratives here. There are report level narratives and visual level narratives. And let's start with report level, which will essentially factor in all of the visuals and all of the filter context for a page as a whole. And to do that, we can head to Insert. We'll see our AI visuals grouped right here. We can go ahead and click the Smart Narrative option, and that's going to create a summary of the insights that Power BI has found. So in this case, it's showing a 260% increase in adjusted profit and total profit, trending up between Monday, June 28th, 2021, and Monday, June 27th, 2022. And I won't read you all the details here, but Power BI is kind of following this template to produce this summary here. So you'll see the same kind of consistent themes. And if you want to understand how certain values in here are derived, you can click on any of these underlined words or values, and it's going to show you exactly how it generated that value. So in this case, Monday, June 28th is the first date of the time series. This one is the last date. This 260% increase says it's the percent change between the first and the last dates for total profit and adjusted profit, with second highest trend coefficient. So at least Power BI is kind of providing some insight into where these values are coming from. Now, as far as how valuable or insightful these summaries actually are, personally, I'm not a huge fan. I'm not really impressed. We'll talk about this a little bit more later, but the good news is that you can edit and customize these quite a bit, which is nice. Now, you might notice some of these hidden value icons. This is indicating that current data and filters are producing no results for that particular value. So kind of think of that as like a placeholder insight that isn't available based on the current report filters. Those aren't visible to end users, and you won't see those unless you're in here in edit mode like I am. So let's say you don't really love some of these insights here. You can treat it just like text. You can format, you can delete paragraphs, you can get rid of those placeholder hidden value icons like so, and we can resize and reformat like we could with pretty much any other visual. So let's do a little reformatting here. I want to drag this into place in the lower right corner of my report for now, and we'll just pull it right down here. These can be a little bit clunky to work with, to be honest, but remember that these also respond to filter context like any other type of chart. So that means if we go back to our exact dashboard and drill through to a different product, like the water bottle, for instance, we'll see that smart narrative change along with the dynamic values within. Now, speaking of dynamic values, that's something that you can add yourself as well. So let's click in here, jump to the top of our list, kind of create our own note right in here. I'm going to keep it simple. To be honest, I find this kind of tricky to work with, but do something like total orders for, I'm going to leave a space placeholder for right now. That's going to be a dynamic value. Total orders for blank were blank. So what I'm going to do is try a dynamic value to return the currently selected product, and then another one to calculate total orders for the current month. So let's see if this works. I can click this lightning bolt to add a dynamic value, and it looks like my dialog box is getting cut off here, so I may need to drag my visual up to see those options. But this is where I want to input the current product name. There are a few ways to do it. I could try something like current product. Gives me some suggestions, and then it gives me the result, which is nice. I could do something like this product as well. So it's kind of nice that it inputs natural language queries reasonably well. I think that should do the trick. So let's go ahead and save that dynamic value. You can see it puts that placeholder there until it populates with water bottle, which is in fact the current product. Now, second dynamic value I want to add here is total orders for the latest month. So let's try total orders for latest month. Try the first suggestion. That does seem to result in a valid value. And we can go ahead and name this as well if we want to customize. Call it something like current month orders and press save. And there we go, populated with 404, which we can map right here to our gauge. That does look like the correct order value for the current month for this particular product. Now, again, I can format these values. Maybe we want to make these dynamic pieces bold just to make them kind of pop a little bit. So you do have a bit of flexibility here in terms of customizing the actual text. And if you want to review any fields that you've added, these were the two that I added. You can edit or delete them from there. So let's drag it back into place here. And we can do a bit of formatting on that smart narrative to change things like the color and the border and so on. So let's go ahead and add a visual border. And why don't we get fancy and round the corners a little bit to 10 pixels. Let's add a title and call it something like report summary. We'll use our standard Seago bold font in size 10. And let's make this text white against a dark gray background to make it really pop as a header. And we'll center it as well. So there you go. We've got our formatted smart narrative box here. And that's our report level narrative. Now, to show you how a visual level narrative works, let's actually jump into customer detail here. And we'll try to find a narrative on a completely different visual, like one of these customer donut charts, for instance. What we can do is right-click and select Summarize, and that's going to also produce a smart narrative. In this case, it's pretty simple. Average had the highest total orders at 11,600, followed by low and high. So keep in mind this isn't factoring in any other charts or visuals or filters on this page, just the visual that we had selected. And the last way that we can integrate smart narratives, we can go ahead and delete that one we just created, is to actually head to the properties for a specific visual, head to header icons, and drill into the icons submenu, and you'll see this smart narrative option at the bottom. You can toggle that on. That's going to create this icon in the header called Smart Narrative. And if you click that, it's basically going to produce the same text value, but using this tooltip kind of format. So that's how to create and edit and customize smart narratives. To wrap this up, I have to say you really need to use these with caution, and I'd advise that you really don't rely on this tool to produce your report insights or summaries. AI is great at a lot of things, like processing and aggregating tons and tons of raw data, but the fact is humans, at least today, are much, much better at communication and insight generation. And I think the problem with a lot of these smart narratives is that they fail to address the why, right? We're looking at very, very simple descriptive narratives that don't really provide any explanation or insight. And that's because they lack any sort of human intuition or business context. For instance, as a human analyst, I might understand that sales are down because we cut our marketing budgets, or that revenue for product B increased because of the new supplier deal that our COO just signed. These are the types of insights that actually add value and lead to real recommendations for the business, and it's where these smart narratives are currently really falling short. So bottom line, I think it's a neat feature, can be a great thought starter, but I'd highly encourage you to rely on your own human intuition when it comes to generating meaningful insights.